So, summer is right around the corner, and in this video, I'd like to walk you through the exact plant-based strategy I'd follow to get significantly leaner, sharper, maybe even add a little bit of muscle mass, essentially get more beach ready, let's say, in these coming months. Firstly, step number one, I think it's a massive misconception, hence why it's first on our list, and I want to mention it here. Please understand you do not need to add a tremendous amount of muscle mass to vastly improve the look of your physique. I appreciate gym culture has become wildly popular in the last 5 or 10 years ago. Certainly since I first stepped foot in a gym maybe 13 years ago, I've watched people get more progressively interested in it year on year, especially the focus on the strength training. But honestly, the vast majority of people watching this are going to look dramatically better losing 10 pounds of body fat than adding 10 pounds of muscle mass. Not only that, one is a much faster process. It's much faster, I argue subsequently easier to lose body fat than it is to add muscle mass, which is a really slow burner and something people find much harder to actually consistently execute on and do the right things. So if your body fat is already relatively high, simply adding more muscle mass is usually not the answer. And like I say, it's such a slow burner anyway, it takes so long versus fat loss that it's not actually the highest leverage thing you can do right now to drastically improve the way that you look. So I think that's my first tip here. For most of us, getting lean, losing body fat should be the primary objective, the focus, not getting too sidetracked with the modern day sort of protein gym, oh, gotta lift weights, I heard that was fantastic for you, like the hysteria around strength training, gym, etc., etc. I think it has gone a bit nuts. Men especially with this, the obsession, my fellow men, the obsession with the bulking, which can actually make you look worse if you are maintaining or let alone gaining body fat. Even if you are building some muscle, you can net aesthetically, in my opinion, look worse. I know that's somewhat subjective, but that's my take. And so when we get lean, we increase that muscle separation. The perception of the physique really changes. You've got that shadow, you've got that visible definition, you shrink the waistline, so you end up looking more proportionate, especially with men when the shoulders pop the chest and then you have that small waist, gives you that amazingly powerful looking strong V taper. And this can actually increase, even if you don't add muscle mass, this actually can provide almost this illusion of increased muscularity because you're so defined, because the muscle bellies are so visible, the definition between each muscle is so visible. So get lean, lose fat, that's the primary objective. Step two, with all of that in mind, can you guess what I'm about to say about protein? Protein is critical, obviously. Protein is important, duh. But yeah, I think it is massively overhyped. There is a hysteria around it. Now, what is the standard of hype that makes the current take on protein overhyped? I don't know. That's slightly relative, isn't it? For the purpose of this plan, though, I think it's very obvious, I suppose, to say that your protein intake depends precisely what your goal is. Now, I've just made the case that unless you're already lean, sub 21% body fat women, sub maybe 13-12% body fat for men, the entire focus should be about fat loss. But do we still want to build some muscle mass if we can? Heck yeah. Heck, this is not a don't build muscle mass video. It's just never going to come at the expense of the fat loss mission. So it's kind of a cherry on the cake thing. And subsequently, well, what we should do with protein then, in my opinion, is, yeah, eat more protein than the average person in order to facilitate this. I have often talked in recent videos about the advised 0.7 grams to 1 gram of protein per kilo of body weight per day being the appropriate protein range for someone with no real muscle building ambition or requirement for above average levels of protein intake. Now, what are we gonna do though? We're gonna bump this up to somewhere between 1.2 grams to 1.6 grams of protein, per kilo of body weight per day, if you follow me. So, as a 70 kilo person, I'm looking at 84 grams of protein right up to 112 grams of protein. Now, the very astute of you, the loyal of you, on this channel here, you'll recognize that I often clear in my day of eating videos 120 grams of protein, and I do so quite easily, I would say. And that's why I'm making this point. Like, this is so achievable to be in that range. It isn't this crazy protein obsession that it's often made out to be, where you necessarily need protein shakes between every single meal, and every meal needs to have 30 grams of protein. No, you'll often see in my day of eating videos I'm far more relaxed than that. But yes, step number two, we are making that extra effort to increase protein to 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilo of body weight per day. Here's the trick though, because we're trying to get lean with this plan, we want most of our protein to come from lean sources with a really advantageous calorie to protein ratio. So this is where we're looking at things like TVP, seitan, and perhaps even a plant protein powder. FYI, I've just done 6 weeks without plant protein powders, just to stress that I don't actually feel they're mandatory necessarily, but they can be a really great way to get lots of protein in for very few calories along with the aforementioned. Those three sources, they actually trump the likes of tofu, tempeh, beans, and lentils for their calorie to protein ratio. Please understand, of course, people binary think. This is not me saying don't eat those other things. I love and eat and worship, frankly, those other things. Really the point being here, you can, if you shift to the inclusion of more, but not exclusively, again, seitan, TVP, plant protein powder, what you'll find is a fantastic way to increase your protein while keeping your calories relatively in check. And finally on protein, before we move on, because I'm always asked about this, amino acids, what do I think about this whole debate discussion? No, frankly, I don't worry about this. I've covered this so many times in recent videos. I'm not going to cover it here. It's going to be another 2 to 3 minutes that we add to the video that I've said so many times, so you don't need my whole take on it here, but basically for me, it is a non-issue. Have balance with your plant protein sources. There's literally nothing to worry about. Total gram amount of protein per day seems to exceed the breadth of the amino acid profiles that you're consuming. Step 3, that's the dreadedly cliche subject of protein out the way, but now we must understand that most of your physique transformation is going to come not from protein, but from calories, the C word, the real C word that everyone hates. And yeah, we are going to talk about the strength training in just a moment, but the biggest lever that you can pull right now, I said that so Americanized, the biggest lever darling, that you can pull, honor the motherland, the biggest lever you can pull right now to drastically improve the way you look is the calories. It's getting yourself into that small, moderate calorie deficit. Why do I favor smaller calorie deficits, even though they get slower results than a steeper, more aggressive deficit? You don't have the same battle with hunger. They seem to be considerably more sustainable. Gym performance seems to be better, so we're going to come on to that shortly. Gym performance tends to be much better, more fuel in the tank, quite obviously here. And another insight I'll speak on, which I can really speak on recently, in recent years, is the leaner that you do get, the less tolerance you have of that really aggressive deficit. If you've got 20, 30 plus pounds to lose, it seems like people can handle a 500, 600, 700 calorie deficit far more easily than if they're at that gents anyway, 12, 13% body fat range where they're really starting to chisel down. It's brutal to actually sustain that much of a calorie deficit day after day. Be specific, Ryan, what do you mean? Can you give us some examples, some numbers here? It's always finding the calorie deficit sweet spot. It is always a feeling out process, and this is why I don't like attaching one exact number to it, kind of like with the protein point. I kind of like the ranges a little bit more so. But what I've landed on, I think, especially in recent years, is find calorie maintenance. Not going to talk about how to find calorie maintenance today. Again, look at my other videos, covered this many, many times, but find that calorie maintenance minus 300 to 350 calories. See what happens. When I say see what happens, see response from the scale, see response in your physique. This is the intangible one. See how you feel in terms of cravings, hunger, energy levels, fatigue, tiredness, etc., mood, etc., etc. And just give that some time to feel it out. You might find that actually you drop weight very rapidly on a 350 calorie deficit. The hunger isn't all that much, and maybe that just gives you a nudge to, hey, let's try 4, let's go steady. We're not good, 600 calories, but let's try a 400 calorie deficit next week and see what happens there. So you can subtract or add from there. You don't need to be too married or glued to it. People are so glued to the 500 calorie deficit thing because it's what a lot of the apps automatically do. Like, you don't need to be that rigid, guys. Like, feel it out. If you're white knuckling, if it's really hard, pull the calories up without going so far as maintenance. But instead, no one does this because they're so in this crazy yo-yo cycle all the time where the compensation is always an overcompensation. Oh, I feel terrible, so I'm going to add 500 calories. Whether that's intentionally or they just break and eat loads of cookies and they add 1,000 calories. Yeah, so 350 to 400, this is what I found. Doesn't mean that's what you found. If you're lighter than me, maybe if you're already leaner than me, that's going to be too high. Perhaps if you have lesser activity level, levels, you're going to need to tinker with this. I'm just saying this is what my body responds to really, really nicely. And that 350 to 400 range for me, it really well marries, you know, decent speed of progress, decent enough speed of progress on the scale, and in terms of the sort of physically fat loss in the mirror each week, and the appropriate fueling to build some muscle in the workouts, feel my best self, adhere to those daily step targets. Again, we're coming on to all of this in just a second. And it adds, this is the most important thing, it adds that layer of sustainability to my fat loss efforts that a really steep aggressive deficit does not. Step 4, I promised this was coming. Let's talk about the exercise then. We're in the gym 3 times a week only on this plan. That's all you need. Have at least 1 rest day. Sometimes it'll be 2 because of how it perhaps falls, but have at least 1 rest day between those sessions to best manage hunger rather than with back-to-back workouts and promote optimal recovery. If you can only get to the gym twice a week, by the way, fine. Just because you can't do 3, that doesn't mean you're going to fail or you shouldn't even bother going to the gym. No, 2 is good enough, but you're going to do full body workouts that combine a mix of upper and lower body movements. 3 times a week, you can just do that little extra volume, which is why I recommend it. On 3 workouts per week, here's what they're going to look like. Workout 1 is going to be an upper day, so we're going to focus on chest, shoulders, back, and arms, so both bicep, triceps. I don't train forearms directly, but indirectly through especially bicep and back movements. Workout number 2 is going to be a lower day, quads, hamstrings, glutes, and calves. Day 3 is going to be full body, where maybe you catch up with anything you haven't done that much of. Maybe you want to really focus on the glutes, ladies. This is a common one. Right now, gents are always like, oh, well, just give me the big arms and the chest, right? So maybe you do a little bit more chest bicep work or bring up something that you feel is a particular area for improvement. Or your second option on 3 workouts per week is just to run upper, lower, right through. So you're not even thinking about 3 workouts per week necessarily, but you're just alternating every time you go to the gym, you do the other one, so upper, lower. So yeah, 3 workouts per week is step number 4. Arguments around, you know, is more better? What about 4, 5 times a week? What about a more conventional sort of quote unquote bodybuilding split? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe that would be better at some point. It's highly contextual, isn't it? What I found though is 3 is very doable. It's a small commitment to ask for most people. It's very practical for most people's schedules. And it's certainly appropriate enough for beginners and intermediates, I think, to make decent muscle gains and providing suitable recovery time between those workouts to make the next workout really efficient. Versus if you're just always in the gym, are you going to be as likely to hit those PRs, feel fresh, apply most energy to the sessions? Not necessarily in my experience, unless you're on the old magic sauce. Step number 5, as much as I've just yapped about the old strength training, daily steps are still going to be your bedrock in this summer beach ready fat loss plan. Yeah, you better believe it. Just something as simple as daily walking. That's still, you got to think about it, like the amount of calories that you actually burn in 2 or 3 strength sessions per week for that 45 minutes in the gym, that is far trumped by a couple of, the thousands of steps, hopefully, that you're accruing each and every single day. And so that's really going to be the bulk of your energy expenditure, apart from just existing anyway, but through intentional, I should say, activity. And daily steps, why I love them, they are a fantastic way to burn calories consistently without the crazy appetite spike that so many other forms of exercise can create. You can imagine what an advantage that is, obviously, in a dedicated fat loss phase. I appreciate the fitness industry seems to bloody well love novelty, doesn't it? Like, there's something new every year. We've just had High Rocks, it was CrossFit 5-6 years ago. Pilates is all the rage right now. Group classes seem to have come back really, really strong. But for me, honestly, nothing comes close to a tool for fat loss like daily walking. Wow! It's so simple, but like the simple stuff, it's the easily overlooked stuff because it isn't sexy, it isn't flash. Just the fact you can walk daily, unlike these other more intense forms of exercise where you need recovery time, you're sore, you need the recovery time, you can walk daily. That makes it, I think, the most practical / safe / sustainable, minimal injury risk, of course, consistent outlet for calorie burn every single day. How many daily steps should I do, Ryan? Or do I even need a target? Is it enough to just go out with the intention every day of I'm going to get some steps in, I'm going to be intentional with my walking? Well, I don't know, no right or wrong on this. Some people do need a North Star. They respond to that really well psychologically in a motivation sense. You decide that really. All I'll say on this is lately I've found 10 to 12,000, no magic number, but I've found 10 to 12,000 steps per day coupled with some nutrition vigilance. Bang, that just really sharpens me up very nicely. And for me personally, living in a European city, 10 to 12K It's quite natural anyway, but it's not so easy that it doesn't sometimes require, I need to go out, I need to get some more steps in. I'm on 6,000 and it's 5 p.m. I've got to think about this now. I've got some work to do. Like, it's challenging enough to not be ludicrously over the top to where I'm often missing it, or it's really hard to schedule, or it seems to require a lot of like motivation units, energy, and it feels, yeah, again, really laborious. That just sharpens me up so nicely and it feels sustainable is what I'm trying to say. Step number 6, the one you're gonna hate me for, there are no cheat days on this plan. We ain't messing around here. It's time to get serious. Like, one day not spent in that intentional calorie deficit, is it a wasted day? Not necessarily. Maybe I'm being slightly hyperbolic, maybe I'm being slightly over the top, but we just don't want to do that unless it's a truly exceptional circumstances. Foot on the gas pedal, especially if you're leaving this late to get beach ready. I don't want to encourage the fast, the extreme stuff. I think you can see that in my other advice here. But at the same time, like, let's get on with this a bit. Let's have a bit of bloody urgency with it. You've been cheating on your diet. I always say you've been cheating on your diet for 10 years, mate. You know, of course you don't need a cheat day. No, I don't care about, oh, it's my son's, but when my clients message me, I don't care about your bloody son's birthday party. I don't give a monkeys, right? We've got work to do. Now, if you want to have a little treat or an indulgence, a glass of wine, a meal out from time to time, that's totally fine, but we are not using that as an excuse for a whole high-calorie day, a cheat day, a blowout, a bingey day. Like, we want to keep things in check and sensible, even if the quality of your nutrition reduces one day because you are a little bit more flexible. That's fine. I do this all the time, every week. There's some little baked good, usually in my diet, or a meal out in my diet. Maybe a cocktail, gin and tonic, I'm partial to every now and again, but I build it in calorically. So the mentality here is, we're not using one thing as a pretext to a 4,000 calorie day, waking up on the scale 2-3 pounds heavier thinking, oh no, what have I done? Not realizing actually a lot of it is water from the sodium and the carbs and not actually that much fat gain, but actually the bigger downside being the negative spiral that it can send us back to as we think we're flirting with bad patterns again, find it hard to get back on track whilst we got used to the taste of maybe the junk food we had yesterday. That being really the death trap with this, but instead, no, this is the desired mentality. Right, I'm gonna have an almond croissant today. Bit of Googling tells me they're usually, I'm guesstimating sometimes, but they're usually in the range of 400 to 500 calories. I am going to cut that calorie amount from my other meals in some fashion. And obviously, maybe it's not obvious, this is exactly the process that I'm doing each week with my clients. Okay, tell me what's on the social calendar. All right, you want this treat, you want this meal out, let's have a look at the menu, let's do some calorie guesstimations here. Okay, good, here are the adjustments to your other meals, there's your meal plan, a few little changes that day, let's do that. And this is exactly how we still enjoy the occasional treat, indulgence. It's not a perfect, strict whole foods program that I run. We have that little indulgence, but we don't blow a lid on the calories. So no cheat days. When we want to be flexible, we do it sensibly. We bend the rules without breaking them. And lastly, but certainly not least, because this ties a lot of the, especially the calorie points together really nicely, this step number 7 is going to be one of the tools, let's say, that helps you actually stay consistent with this whole plan so far. You need to be maxing out on summer volume foods. Now, I love and constantly rave, don't I, in the winter months about my soups and my stews as being a fantastic way to get the volume up whilst diluting the calories nicely because of all the water content. But nobody really likes eating those hot, warmer dishes in the summer months, quite obviously. So for us now, at this time of year, this plan is all about loads of fresh fruit, we're doing the big salads, we're doing my raw veggie sticks with a little bit of oil-free hummus, or maybe my low-calorie soy yogurt mustard dip. Again, this is not a new or profound idea, I'm just talking about volume eating, but with a summer twist. To give you something you can literally start actioning after this video, I want to tell you my 2 fruits of choice at the moment. Now summer is coming around. Strawberries and melon. Not only wonderfully hydrating, but an amazingly low, I should say, calorie density. So the volume, when I keep saying calorie density, the volume you can get for the calories they contain, these 2 fruits are particularly stand out in an already low calorie dense food category like fruit. So those 2 fruits I particularly love right now. So summer volume foods, that's step number 7. That's going to more easily help you stay in that calorie deficit consistently, gladly every single day, and not feeling like you're starving yourself. That's it then. Those are my 7 steps to start getting yourself in glorious shape as the summer comes around. I remind you again that for most of us, unless you're already super lean, super shredded, the focus here is on fat loss. That's the biggest lever you can pull in the shortest space of time right now to drastically improve the way that you look. If you increase a little bit of muscle mass, if you add a little bit of muscle mass in the process, lovely jubbly, what a cherry on the cake that is. So gentlemen especially, stop with this excessive bulking thing that actually in many cases makes you look worse. Focus on simply getting leaner, stick with it, and you will fall. I'm making bold proclamations. You will fall in love with the way you look. Again, take it from me, I used to detest, I think many people, I'm not saying especially so, woe is me, etc., etc. I think many people fall out of love with the way they look in their adult years, but I used to detest when I was 21, 22 the way I looked. And yeah, it really can turn around is what I wish to say. And it doesn't take as long as you think when you're actually consistent and you have the right path and you don't get distracted with gym, protein, bulking hysteria. Get lean, get chiseled, add some muscle mass on the way if you can. But the big goal here is fat loss. So Godspeed. Hope this video helps you out. You know where I am if you need more help.